Hi everyone, it's Christy from Green Eye Tarot. It's Sunday, which means it's time for another Spread It Out Sunday. Spread It Out Sunday is a series I've been doing on my channel that basically is me going to my tarot library or my tarot book library, so just tarot in general, whether it be books or decks, and finding a spread from either one of the guidebooks from my tarot decks or a tarot book that's on my shelf. So I pull a spread from one of those, and then I pull cards and we look at the positions and look at the different prompts for each one, and then pull cards, and I just basically run through a reading using the spread. And this came about really because I have so many decks in my library. I have so many books on my shelf, and so many of those different resources contain really good tarot spreads. And so this allows me, one, to find these great spreads, and two, to just reconnect with some decks that have been sitting in my library and maybe I haven't used for a little while. So this week is a special edition, and I've chosen to do a spread from this brand new book that I got called Tarot for Light Seers. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Light Seers Tarot by Chris-Anne. It's a fabulous modern take on the RWS tarot system. I've had the Light Seers deck pretty much since it came out mass market. I missed out on the indie version, but I do have the Hay House mass market edition, which I've had since it came out through Hay House. So it's been several years now, but the book that you see in front of you was just released, was just published not too long ago. Now this is Tarot for Light Seers. And I was definitely interested in this when I saw that it was coming out, but I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to pick it up. And then I was making my weekly trip to Barnes & Noble like I always do, where I usually just browse around and wander around the store. Sometimes I get things, sometimes I don't. It's usually just a fun way to spend part of an afternoon or an evening. And this was there. And so I was so excited to see it on the shelf. And so, of course, I picked it up and started thumbing through it. I ended up getting it because it is really beautiful. It's filled with, Chris-Anne's artwork. If you love the artwork from the Light Seers, then this is a great book to have. It also expands on the meanings that are already in the guidebook. So the mass market version of the tarot, the Light Seers Tarot, includes like a little white book. This expands on the information that's in there, because I kind of did a comparison on the entries. So, and so saw that there was a bit of an expansion on what is in that small guidebook. The other neat thing, and I'll show an example in a minute, is that Chris-Anne breaks down the card and the symbolism in the card. So I think this is going to be a great way to just dive deeper with this deck. This is a deck that I've had, like I said, for a long time. It's one that, I will never get rid of. I feel like it's probably one of my favorite modern takes. I don't like a lot of modern RWS versions that come out. I just don't. I'm not really usually drawn to them. This is one of the ones that I really do like. I really do like the energy, and of course I love the artwork. So, and this is Tarot for Light Seers. A journey through the symbols, messages, and secrets of the cards. It says, into the gray we follow, like 1,000 flickering stars, and there in a sunlit hollow, we lose and find what is ours. So again, it's very beautiful. It is very, it's just very nicely produced. It is published by Hay House, just like the tarot deck. It is a hardcover edition. Here we have the other offerings from Chris-Anne. As we know, they are the creator of Light Seers, but also the Muse Tarot, the Sacred Creators Oracle, which I have, the Tarot of Curious Creatures, and then the pocket edition of the Light Seers Tarot. So This is, again, like I said, it's beautifully produced. Here we have the table of contents. It's obviously breaking down the major and minor arcana. There's some tarot correspondences in the back. I have not been through the entire book. I've just kind of looked through it. Again, did a side-by-side comparison with a couple of the guidebook entries. And of course, I looked at some of the spreads that are in here. So there's introductory information, and then a little bit about tarot basics for new card slingers, and a note on upright and reversals. Here's a connecting with your cards, and here we have the readings and spreads. So for this edition of Spread It Out Sunday, I decided we are going to do the Anxious Loops spread. I feel like, I don't know about many of you, but there's just like this thickness in the air, this anxiety, this general anxiety, especially my friends in the United States. We have an election coming up in 2 days. I was going to say next week, but today's Sunday, and it's happening in just a few days. So, and I think that there's just so much, surrounding that. So I feel like there's just a lot of anxiety in the air, just an unsettling feeling, at least for myself. So I'm going to do the Anxious Loops spread from this new Tarot for Light Seers book by Chris-Anne. So we have 4 cards in this spread. We have the first card, which is the Root. The second card, Embrace It. The third card, Transmute It, which I love that word, transmute. And 4, Heal It. So for the first card, it says, I am. Why am I feeling fear and anxiety? 2 says, Embrace It. I am safe, a loving message to my heart and mind. 3, Transmute It. I am love, compassionate action steps of transformation and change. I am here, illuminate the path towards healing. So I thought this was a really nice, easy, not too many cards, 4 cards, but something to, kind of get me in touch with really like what I'm feeling, this fear and anxiety. And then I like the compassionate action steps, right? So we've got to take action. Transformation and change is really important. We also have to have compassion and grace for ourselves. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to dig in. And then as I pull cards for this, I will bring the book back, and then we can kind of look at so this is kind of like a little preview of this book. You get a little review / preview of the new book, as well as a Spread It Out Sunday. So it's a little special edition. So I'm sure many of you have seen this deck. It's a very, very popular deck, been around. And this is the Light Seers. This is the mass market edition. So and I actually like this cardstock quite a bit. Like it's different. It's not quite 100% matte. Like it's definitely not glossy, shiny. It's like a weird combo. It's like an in-between. But I do like it. I do. It's pretty chunky, this deck. Like if you look, it's pretty thick because of the thickness of the cardstock, or the type of cardstock that is used. So it's a pretty big deck. It shuffles, pretty nice. It kind of bounces back pretty nicely, but I don't know. I like it. It's an interesting cardstock. It's definitely not matte like the new Hay House cardstock, like Oracles, that they've been coming out with. But it's also not entirely glossy. So just a little bit about the cardstock. Again, I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with this deck. I think some people don't jive with this deck at all, and that's okay too. To each his own. But today we are going to pull some cards from the Light Seers Tarot. And for this Anxious Loops spread. All right, so we have 4 cards. Our first card is the Root. Why am I feeling fear and anxiety? All right, so the root of why am I feeling fear and anxiety, this anxious loop, which I feel like a lot of us get caught in this anxiety loop, right? Where we deal with one thing and we find something else to become anxious about. So I could definitely see anxiety being a loop that we can get stuck in. So this is the root. Why am I feeling fear and anxiety? Strength. Amazing. We're starting off strong here with a major arcana card, which is great. It'll let us dig into this new book too. So we got the strength card, which I love this interpretation of the strength card. I feel like this is such an amazing depiction of this card, with the sort of the woman in this card being the lion, right? The lion, instead of seeing the lion as an outside entity in the card. But then we also have this little lamb, this little lammy here, sort of sitting with her. So I love that depiction. I love the strength card in this deck. So I like that we got that. Okay, so, and it's going to be neat to look at this book and see how the card has broken down by symbols, how we really dig into the symbolism. So let's see, for our second card is Embrace It. A loving message to my heart and mind. So a loving message to my heart and mind. Let's see what we come up with. The Emperor. My goodness, we are just like all in on the majors right now. All right. We have Strength and the Emperor. A loving message to my heart and mind. The Emperor. That could symbolize maybe someone in our life that embodies the qualities of the Emperor, or our own sense of structure and authority in our lives. Okay, so 3 is Transmute It. 3 is Transmute It, compassionate action steps of transformation and change. So compassionate action steps of transformation and change. The Lovers. We have gotten all major arcana. What is happening today? All right, so big things happening. Like I said, this anxious loop spread is about so much more than, for me at least, like my own personal things happening. This is so much bigger. This anxiety is coming from such bigger themes and things that are at stake, and things that have come up for me, in particularly personally, around this election. I'm not going to be talking about anything political at all, but just all of the things we face when we make these decisions, all the information that we're bombarded with, and how much noise is happening as we lead up into these types of elections, these large elections here in our country. All of the noise, there's just so much, and there's so much that I struggle with, around these times. And so we're getting 3 major arcana cards. Tells me that, yes, this is big. This is some big things going on. So number 4 is Heal It. I am here. Illuminate the path towards healing. Okay, so number 4 is illuminate the path towards healing. So we're healing, some kind of healing message for us. Illuminate the path towards healing. Let's see. The Queen of Wands. Okay, amazing. How beautiful do these cards look together? How beautiful does this spread just look with each other, these cards next to each other? All right, so we have 3 major arcana cards hitting here as the root, as Embrace It, as Transmute It. So why am I feeling fear and anxiety? Strength. I feel like fear and anxiety, especially around sort of the themes that I was talking about, where we're at as a society, in particular in this country, in the United States, at this time. Today is November 3rd. So knowing what is coming and what is happening on November 5th, I think why am I feeling fear and anxiety? I feel like the Strength card in this position is really about like, where does the strength lie? Like for me, I've been going back and forth between so many different things. Like, And also too, like in trying not to speak, I feel like the more you try not to speak about politics, the more you end up speaking about it. So like I feel like I failed in my like, I don't want to discuss this without, like, I don't want any more outside noise and influence like bombarding and penetrating my brain. Like I'm already sort of on like, like on it's like DEFCON 5. Like I'm, like with certain things in my own brain. So I feel like my fear and anxiety is coming. It's almost like, even if I don't share my political views or share like who I'm voting for in this election or things like that, I feel like somehow I'm like letting somebody down. Like I'm letting people down. Like there's like my own personal beliefs and then my own personal, like the issues like in that are important to me. And then there's like people I love that like would be impacted by it, and whole populations of people that I worry about and that I have concern for, and things that are like causing me just like general anxiety. Again, even if it doesn't impact me directly, like I live in this world, I live in this country, and I'm a part of it. So I try to, I'm trying to ensure that like I'm like approaching this election and voting with like my head and my heart and my like very soul as a human being, and as like just as a person, as a member of society, like I was saying. And so I worry about the whole greater good. So I think that that's like this fear and anxiety is like, you want to be able to use your strength and your abilities and have sort of like that fortitude for good. You want to be, using it for good. And like, you don't want to compromise I don't want to compromise like my beliefs and my morals and like what I feel, like where my moral compass is. And I feel like that's where the fear and anxiety is coming from. So I feel like my fear and anxiety is coming from like, am I going to be able to stand in my beliefs? Like use my strength and stand in my own strength on my own beliefs, and like do what I need to do, what I feel it, should be done and needs to be done, with all this like outside influence and like this, like I said, this noise. I feel like that's where that's coming from. So then we have the Emperor, which is the embrace it position. I am safe. A loving message to my heart and mind. So again, with this major arcana card, like this is big energy. So interesting that I pulled the Emperor in this spread, with all, like I said, with these things that are going on and where we're at, and the anxiety that I'm feeling, and this feeling of collective anxiety as well. I feel like this is a message of right, so we're thinking about themes of authority and themes of power and themes of structure and sort of that solid like that solid foundation, right? We think of like the seat, the throne, if you will, that the Emperor is typically like, that we've always seen traditionally being seated upon, that like stone, really like sturdy and solid. And I think that the loving message to my heart and mind is that there's a foundation somewhere, like there's a strong foundation here, or you know what I mean, that I have a strong foundation within myself. I feel like as I've been thinking so much about this, decolonizing my mind and my thoughts and that extends to my tarot practice. And when we think of the Emperor, like just the name of the card, the Emperor, I feel like the Emperor has such a colonial connotation to it. And so this is so interesting to me that this came up in this way, because this loving message, I feel like, is that, you know, that we all can get in touch with the divine masculine, right? Like we all kind of have that masculine and feminine within all of us, and we can create that structure for ourselves. Like regardless of what's going on around us, we can kind of be that structure and like use that sort of ability to think like logically and take action the way we need to. I feel like the loving message is that we are our own. Like, I don't want to say we are our own emperor, but we are, like, we provide that structure for ourselves, and we can be. Like, we don't have to rely on, like, these people that we're electing as elected officials, like, as much power as they have or appear to have. There's more power in the collective if we hold true. So this fear that we have of, like, our beliefs and, like, what we feel is right and what we know to be what needs to be done, and with the vision that we have for, like, you know, what our country can look like, both domestically and like on the international like level, we know that, you know, this all-encompassing power doesn't have to be the truth. There's not this one person that has to have, you know, all this power. We need collectively, we can be, you know what I mean, the structure and the foundation and the solid sort of strategic, you know, like visionary that this country needs. Like that if we stick, like, kind of stay the course here and not allow outside influences and not, I don't know, sort of give into like the, like, you know, like, oh, like give into this like apathetic, like kind of like the way that I had been feeling about this leading up to this. It was very apathetic. And in that, you know, like we're out of options, sort of like feeling like, what are our options here? And so I think we have to sort of embody this sovereignty, you know, that kind of comes from this emperor word. So that's what I'm getting out of it. Again, seeing this from a very, like I said, collective anxiety, and then myself as a individual within it as well. So number 3 was transmute it, compassionate action steps of transformation and change. We have the Lovers, which I think is an amazing message and sort of lends to this, you know, this idea that that we have to, you know, that we have to hold true to each other, like to ourselves and each other as a collective, like the others, you know what I mean? Others in our like lives. Like I always think of it as like zooming out. It's like, so you have like your partner, if you have a partner, or you have like someone in your life that you're super close to, and it's like, okay, so how am I like holding true to that? How am I, you know, how am I showing up in this relationship? And then you zoom out and it's like your family, and you zoom out further from that and it's like your community and like your work community. And like if you work outside your home and you have coworkers and people that you work with, or clients that you interface with, or, you know, populations of people that you work with. So you're zooming out, and then you're zooming out more than that. And it's you know what I mean, the region of the country that you live in, and the world that you live in, and you zoom and you just keep zooming out. And you're looking now at the human collective, like the whole entire human experience, all of humanity. And that includes like the natural world, like every living thing. It's like, that's the universe, right? Is like as far as we can zoom, and even beyond that, zooming out. And I think this is that harmony card, right? So the compassionate actions is like, how do we find this unity, right? When there's so much disunity, and like there's so much violence and chaos and things that are going on. And how do we find that, right? The compassionate is that, like, I feel like for me the message is that we can't stop. Like, we have to keep seeking this vision of like unity and a harmony and a healthy, you know what I mean, a healthy relationship between, you know, humanity and these systems that are in place that need to change. Like, we need to have transformation. There needs to be change in this world, or we're not going to have a world, right? There's not going to be anything left if we continue into this darkness of like losing our humanity, turning our backs on what's happening in our world in terms of just the environment, and then turning our backs on, you know, the people that are being completely, you know, oppressed and almost wiped out off of the face of the earth. And so things that I feel like we need to hold on to, that connection to our humanity. And the transformation and change comes from always sort of holding that other person. Like, look at the card, they're sort of locked into each other. There's this gaze. It's like never averting your eyes from what's like the hard stuff, right? The compassionate step and transforms to say, I'm gonna, no matter what I see here, I'm not gonna like break, like don't look away, right? Like that type of energy. Just looking at these two, looking at each other in the face, I'm thinking, I'm not going to look away. I can't look away, because looking away is to disconnect from my own humanity, is how I look at it. And that's part of this fear and anxiety of like staying connected to and being strong in my beliefs, and understanding that one person does not hold the power, that that you know, that power comes from this idea of unity and being connected to other humans, and being able to sow that unity and get to that place of transformation and change, even though it's going to be hard and you're going to want to look away. And that's just how I feel about this Lovers card. That choice is in there. I'm choosing to stay present. I'm choosing to confront all the hard stuff and like just lock in and stay locked in and stay, again, that staying the course kind of feeling. So number 4 is the heal it. It says, I am here, illuminate the path towards healing. And we got the Queen of Wands, which is an amazing energy, especially when you see the word illuminate, and then you have this this beautiful figure in the card just sort of having illumination come right out of their hand. Is beautiful. It's beautiful that that language is here, that illuminate language, and here we have the Queen of Wands. And so I think, let's take a look at the book. I'm going to go ahead and move the cards a little bit so that we can, so I'm going to pull up, open to the Queen of Wands in the book so that we can get a sense, you can get a sense of, or we together can get a sense of what this looks like in terms of how we break down the cards. So here's the Queen of Wands. Again, this was our illuminate, right? Illuminating sort of this path forward, how we can heal. I like this over here. It says, I fill my world with an intense light that connects and incites passion. So again, that illumination and light message that we're getting, I like that connection there. So it says, the Queen of Wands exudes an intoxicating brand of confidence and determination. She's incredibly captivating and charming, and she brings her intense creativity and passion with her wherever she goes. When she enters a room, her smile is only overshadowed by her warm-hearted laughter and her ability to share her legendary stories. She steps comfortably into her role as queen, self-assured and assertive as she leads. Today she sits on her desert throne, surrounded by her dreams and her memories, her irresistible energy, and her people. She understands the power of deep connection and the lengths that people will go to when they are cared for and when their efforts go noticed and appreciated. Even though she knows there have been times when her emotions blazed too hot, her bright heart always burns fearlessly, and she remains deeply loved by everyone around her. So it says the message from the Queen of Wands is you are capable and fierce. It's time to claim the magic you've been looking for. Boldly step into the limelight of your life. Don't be afraid to be the center of attention. Don't stop acting small. Always go back to love, which I love that we have the lovers right next to them here. So always go back to love and the lovers. And I think that that's an amazing message, because I think we're disconnected from that as just an entire society. We're disconnected from that feeling, from that love, being at the center of everything. So know that it's okay to be healing and still want to heal others. It's okay to be vulnerable and imperfect and still lead. I love that message. So, I mean, really, I don't know do any of us expect any of our leaders to be perfect? I don't think that that's the expectation we're looking for anyone who's in a leadership position to be perfect. I also think it's interesting we got a queen. We have the emperor and the queen, and I feel like, again, we're using really colonial type of language, right? When we think of a queen, we think of a person apart. We think of one person who's ruling. And I think we need to move away from that language, move away from those ideas, just move away from this queen and the what she is embodying, or what they are embodying in this card is, that confidence and that joy and that passion and that creativity. And that's something that we can embrace in ourselves and feel like I am the queen. It's, again, that sovereignty of self, which I think is amazing. When we're looking at it as a whole, or just thinking of it as the big picture, as this collective, we do not want one person being, ruling. There is no ruler over all of us, over everyone, and I think that the signals that I'm getting in this reading are really reflective of how I've been thinking. I think that it's interesting that, again, these sort of colonial type of connotations are coming up, and that's what I've been sort of focusing on, thinking about what does it mean, what does it look like, just the language we use, the titles we use and I'm not saying we need to get rid of and change the entire tarot system, just being aware of how the title of the card is part of the card's meaning. And for me, that's where I've been sort of focusing on a lot of my my work around this, is looking at the actual names of the cards. Like, this title on this card is a part of the meaning, and there's a narrative to come out of these cards that relate to this colonialism that this country was built on. Like, literally, how the foundations of this country that I live in, and the implications that it's still having, the ramifications that has now. And so it's interesting that the queen came up. I think it's full of light. I think it's luminous. I think it's illuminating. I think in general, I also think that I love that message about you always go back to love, that you can lead without being perfect. We do not want perfection. We want authenticity, and we want, speaking for myself, I want someone who's going to acknowledge that, there are systems of repression that need to be dismantled. The dismantling needs to happen. And so I think this card has a lot of power, and it's filled with light, and I like that. So I love just in the book, thinking about this and looking about the book, the way Chris-Anne sort of just made some notes here. I also love the way that I love the handwritten aspects of this deck, that kind of always has had that, but I like how there's sort of this handwritten vibe going on in the book. So it says fire symbol earrings, which is kind of amazing, because I'm not quite sure I ever looked that closely at her earrings. They are dangling, and now I'm going to need the reading glasses again because I can't see anything. I can't see anything up close. So yeah, so right there, her earrings, I don't even think I ever noticed, as I knock everything off my desk, I don't even think I ever noticed that her earrings are dangling and like they're fire symbols. So amazing. Already we're learning so much. We're digging deeper into this deck that I've had for so long. So I'm not sure I ever even noticed that. Black cat, the occult, mystery, protection. Again, I don't know that I ever noticed that that's a cat right there at the bottom. I mean, I think I'm so focused on the figure, like their face or their facial expressions, that I've never even noticed that. This is like just a shadow of her legs crossed, meanwhile it's a cat. The occult, mystery, protection, connection to magic. Candles. See lots of candles. Revered by others. Warmth, surrounded by many. Oh, that's interesting. Like being surrounded by her people, like it said. So that's really interesting. So that's kind of what you're getting out of the book in terms of relating to symbols and the artwork that we see. I think let's look at a major arcana card because we have a kind of a one page for each major arcana. So let's look at a major. So here we have strength. Let's look at strength because I think this card's amazing. So let's look at the strength card. Here it says the Leo constellation. So that I had noticed in this card. Balance between human and animal. Her position shows her confidence and willingness to be vulnerable. True. Like one side of her is showing that vulnerability and one side is showing confidence. Amazing. The infinity tattoo. Eternal strength and endurance. Balance of restraint and power. Oh, I love that restraint. I love that word. A balance of restraint and power. The lamb, innocence, purity, inner peace, and calmness, control, spiritual faith, gentleness, and compassion. So that little lammy, I've definitely noticed. And then we have the heart necklace, compassion, empathy, love, inner strength. And then there's notes down here that say green, heart chakra, yellow, solar plexus chakra, which says willpower, white, purity. So we're seeing the different color choices in the card as well being noted in this book. So if you wanted to kind of get an idea about what's in this book and how it's laid out, there's an example. So I think I think I'm really going to enjoy looking through this and kind of going through each card and looking at Chrisanne's notes about colors and all of her symbolic choices. So that's really nice. This is a really nice book. I'm really glad I got it. This is a great deck. Again, it's probably one of my favorite modern takes on the Rider-Waite-Smith. So I would love to hear your thoughts about this reading. Just about this spread, this anxious loop spread. I think it definitely gave me a lot to think about, which is great. I know that thinking isn't always what you want to be doing when you're anxious, but I think that the tarot makes you think or helps you think and see things in really like deeper and complex and interesting ways. And so it's the kind of thinking that is good for, at least for me, it's the kind of thinking that's good for me and provides an outlet for sort of all this excess anxiety and anxious energy that I have. So let me know, about that if you feel that's a good representation of how tarot helps or is supporting you, during these times. And then if you've gotten this book, I'd like to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts about the book? Because I think, like I said, I think it's beautiful and it's a beautiful deck and it's well loved, I think, in this community. So I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.